Baiklah teman-teman sekalian, kali ini kita akan membahas salah satu metode dalam pengajaran bahasa Inggris, yaitu Community Language Learning, yang disusun oleh Suyudi, Ibu Anita, dan Ibu Devi Julia. Baiklah teman-teman sekalian, kita awali saja dengan introductions about this method. The community language learning method encourages teachers to view their students as a whole person. This concept of whole person learning suggests that teachers should consider not only the intellectual abilities of their students, but also understand how their emotions, physical responses, natural defenses, and motivation to learn are interconnected. The community language learning method, influenced by Charles A. Curran's counseling learning approach, is based on this idea. Curran, inspired by Carl Rogers' humanistic psychology, found that adult learners often feel anxious and fear making mistakes in new learning situations. He believed that teachers, by acting as language counselors, can help students face these fears, offering empathy and understanding to transform negative feelings into positive motivation for learning. Experience. In class using the community language learning approach, students sit in a circle and conduct an English conversation with guidance from the teacher, who provides translation from Indonesian as needed. Each student's English phrases are recorded, and they repeat parts of their statement for practice. Afterward, they reflect on the experience, with the teachers offering encouragement and affirming their feelings. The teacher then transcribes the conversation onto the blackboard for students to review, correct pronunciation, and better understand sentence structure. Additional exercises such as conjugating verbs, forming sentences, and creating dialogues allow students to build on the conversation over the next few sessions. This method nurtures a comfortable environment that helps students gradually improve their English skill and confidence. Okay, thinking about the experience, on one side of the observation can be listed, while the other, the principle derived from those observations, are recorded as follows. Let's begin with the observation and continue to the principle directly. The first point would be the teacher greets and introduces himself, encouraging students to introduce themselves. This principally will build relationship among students and with the teacher is key. The next point would be the teacher explain the activities and their structure. Principally, knowing what to expect makes students feel secure and more open to learning. The third point, students engage in conversation. Then, principally, this will minimizing the teacher's authority, fosters interaction, and reduce intimidation. And the next point, the teacher translates selectively. Principally, this will support should match student confidence level. Let's continue to the next points. In class, the teacher indicates time limit. Principally, these defined activity limits increase student comfort. And then, in the class, students discuss their feeling post-activity. Principally, this reflects on learning foster community and self-awareness. In In the class of observation, the teacher accepts each student input. Principally, this is an accepting atmosphere lowers students' defenses and promotes learning. In the class, the teacher actively listens to students. Principally, listening helps teacher understand students' need, self-awareness, and easing negativity. In the class, students listen to a tape and translate. Principally, using student native language clarifies meaning and builds confidence. In the class, teacher arranges the students in a semicircle in front of blackboard. Principally, structuring activities thoughtfully promotes success. In the class, the teacher reassures students about note-taking. Principally, focusing one task at a time aids early stage learning. In the class, the teacher encourages student participation with translation. Principally, the teacher promotes independence while providing gentle guidance. In the class, the teacher reads the transcript multiple times. Principally, reflection time is essential for learning. In the class, in a pronunciation exercise, students choose phrases to practice. Principally, choice fosters student responsibility and focus. Let's continue to the next slide. In the class, students learn to listen closely to match pronunciation. Principally, discrimination in sounds help in language acquisition. In the class, students work in small groups. Principally, group work builds community and encourages cooperation. In the class, the teacher corrects errors by modeling correct sentences. Principally, non-threatening feedback supports learning. In the class, non-threatening feedback supports learning. Principally, building a class community helps reduce anxiety. In the class, the teacher repeats the tape. Principally, balance between novelty and familiarity aids retention. Let's continue to the class. Students reflect on the evening's experiences and principally reflecting on both language and learning builds insight. In the class, students engage in further activities and a new conversation. Principally, students are more motivated when they contribute to learning content. So, in conclusion, the community language learning or CLL methods is a language learning approach that places students at the center of learning process, focusing on their emotional and also social aspect. This method emphasizes natural interactions, reflection, and the teacher's role as a supporter to help students feel more comfortable and confident while learning a new language. By creating a collaborative and low pressure environment, CLL allows students to develop gradually through a personal and meaningful learning experience. This presentation is taken from a book of Diane Larson Freeman entitled Techniques and Principles in Language Teaching.
Community language learning. Thinking about the experience. 1. The teacher greets the students, building a relationship with and introduces himself and has the among students is very important. Students introduce themselves. 2. The teacher tells the students what they are going to do that evening. He explains the procedure of the first activity and sets a time limit. 3. Students have a conversation. 4. The teacher stands behind the students. 5. The teacher translates what the students want to say in chunks. 6. The teacher tells them that remaining for the conversation. 7. Students are invited to talk about how they felt during the conversation. 8. The teacher accepts what each student says. 9. The teacher reads the transcript 3 times. The students relax and listen. 10. The students listen to the tape and give the Indonesian translation. 11. The teacher asks the students to form a semicircle in front of the blackboard so they can easily. 12. The teacher reassures the students that they will have time later on to copy the sentences. 13. The teacher asks the students to give the Indonesian equivalents as he points at different phrases in the transcript. He points at the first phrase and pauses if no one volunteers the meaning. He writes it himself. 14. The teacher reads the transcript 3 times. The students relax and listen. 15. In the human-computer activity, the students choose which phrase they want to practice pronouncing. The teacher, following the student's lead, repeats the phrase until the learner is satisfied and stops. 16. The student learns to listen carefully to see if what they say matches what the teacher is saying. 17. Students work together in groups of 3. 18. The teacher corrects by repeating correctly the sentence the students have created. 19. The students read their sentences to the other members of the class. 20. The students read their sentences to the other members of the class. 21. The students are once again invited to talk about the experience they have had that evening. 22. Other activities with the transcript of the first conversation occur, then the learners have a new conversation. Reviewing the principles. What are the goals of teachers who use the community language learning method? Teachers using the community language learning method help students communicate in the new language, understand their learning, take responsibility, and learn from each other. This works best when teachers and students value each other's thoughts and feelings. What is the role of the teacher? What is the role of the students? The teacher's first role is to act as a counselor, meaning they support and guide students through the challenges of learning a new language. They're not a therapist, but they help students feel understood and less anxious about learning. What are some characteristics of the teaching or learning process? In a beginner class using this method, students start by speaking in their native language and the teacher helps translate and record it in chunks. These chunks are replayed, then transcribed with the translations, becoming a learning text for grammar, pronunciation, and sentence practice. What are some characteristics of teaching or learning process? Current 6 elements for effective learning are security or feeling safe, aggression or active participation, attention or focused listening, reflection or thinking about what's learned, retention or integrating new language, and discrimination or noticing language differences. Together, these steps make learning engaging and sportive. What is the nature of student-teacher interaction? What is the nature of student-student interaction? In the community language learning method, the student-teacher interaction changes during the lesson. Sometimes, students take the lead, like during conversations, while the teacher steps back to let them interact with each other. At other times, the teacher takes charge and guides the class. Over time, students take on more responsibility. The method is neither fully teacher-centered nor student-centered, but a balance of both. Building trust is key to reducing anxiety, helping students stay open to learning, and encouraging cooperation rather than competition. Both students and teachers play a role in making decisions during the class. How are the feelings of the students dealt with? In counseling learning, it's important for the teachers to pay attention to how students feel. The teacher asks students to share their feelings and listens carefully, helping them overcome any negative emotions that might get in the way of learning. To make students feel secure, the teacher uses their native language, explains what will happen in the lesson, sticks to time limits, gives them only as much language as they can handle, and organizes activities clearly. As students improve, the way security is provided changes. How is language viewed? How is culture viewed? Language is for communication. Current beliefs, learning is persons, meaning both the teachers and students build trust with each other and the learning process. At first, the focus is on sharing and connecting through language tasks. Later, the focus shifts to the target language, which becomes a shared identity for the group. Curran also thinks that in a supportive learning environment, language helps develop creative and critical thinking, and culture plays an important role in learning a language. What areas of language are emphasized? What language skills are emphasized? In the beginning, students create their own material by choosing what they want to say in the new language. As they gain confidence, the teacher may introduce prepared materials or textbooks. They focus on grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary based on what students have already learned. At first, the main focus is on understanding and speaking, with reading and writing added to support these skills. What is the role of students' native language? At first, students feel more secure by using their native language, which helps them move from what they know to the new language. The teacher provides translation to make the meaning clear and lets students practice forming sentences. In the early stages, class instruction and sharing feelings are done in their native language. As students progress, more of the target language is used. By later stages, the native language is used last. In classes where students speak different native languages, they start using the target language right away, using gestures, pictures, and synonyms to make meaning clear. How is evaluation accomplished? In the community language learning method, evaluation should match the method's principles. If a task is required, the teacher prepares students well. Tasks are usually more about using language in real situations, like writing a paragraph or having an interview, rather than focusing on small details. Teachers also encourage students to assess their own progress and reflect on their learning. How does the teacher respond to student errors? Teachers should help students with their mistakes in a gentle, non-threatening way. For example, the teacher can repeat what the student said correctly without pointing out the mistake. The teaching methods depends on the student's learning stage, but always aim to maintain a respectful, supportive relationship. How is evaluation accomplished? In the community language learning method, evaluation should match the method's principles. If a task is required, the teacher prepares students well. Tasks are usually more about language in real situations, like writing a paragraph or having an interview, rather than focusing on small details. Teachers also encourage students to assess their own progress and reflect on their learning. Tape recording student conversation. This is a technique used to record student-generated language as well as give the opportunity for community learning to come about. By giving students the choice about what to say and when to say it, students are in a good position to take responsibility for their own learning. Students are asked to have a conversation using their native language as the common language of the group. In multilingual groups, other means will have to be employed. For instance, students can use gestures to get their meaning across. After catch native language utterances, or use of a gesture, the teacher translates what the student says or acts out in the target language. The teacher gives the student the target language translation in appropriate size chunks. Each chunk is recorded, giving students a final tape recording with only the target language on it. Transcription. The teacher transcribes the student's tape-recorded target language conversation. Each student is given the opportunity to translate his or her utterances, and the teacher writes the native language equivalent beneath the target language words. Reflection on experience. The teacher takes time during and or after the various activities to give the students the opportunity to reflect on how they feel about the language learning experience, themselves as learners, and their relationship with one another. As students give their reactions, the teacher understands them, shows that he has listened carefully by giving an appropriate understanding response to what the students have said. He does not repeat what the learner says, but rather shows that he understands its essence. You may wish to return to the lesson we observed where the teacher understood the student's reaction to their conversation. Such responses can encourage students to think about their unique engagement with the language, the activities, the teacher, and the other students, strengthening their independent learning. Reflective listening. The students relax and listen to their own voices speaking the target language on the tape. Another possible technique is for the teacher to read the transcript while the students simply listen with their eyes open or shut. A third possibility is for the students to mouth the words as the teacher reads the transcript. Human-computer. A student chooses some part of the transcript to practice pronouncing. The student is in control of the teacher when the students to say the word or phrase. The teacher, following the student's lead, repeats the phrase as often as the student wants to practice it. The teacher does not correct the student's mispronunciation in any way. It is through the teacher's consistent manner of repeating the word or phrase clearly that the student self-corrects as he or she tries to imitate the teacher's model. Small group tasks. The small groups in the class we observed were asked to make new sentences with the words on the transcript. Afterward, the group shared the sentences they made with the rest of the class. Later in the week, students working in pairs made sentences with the different verb conjugations. Conclusion. The two most basic principles which underline the kind of learning that can take place in the community language learning method are summed up in the following phrases. 1. Learning is person, which means that whole person learning of another language takes place based in a relationship of trust, support, and cooperation between teacher and students and among students. And 2. Learning is dynamic and creative, which means that learning is a living and developmental process.